Picture a scene that feels almost routine. It's Friday evening, just after 5:30 p.m. Your work week is officially over. Your body has left the office, stepped into a car or onto a train, but your mind hasn't caught up. Your thoughts feel scattered, dull, and exhausted, as if they've been wrung dry. The idea of cooking a simple, healthy meal feels overwhelming, not because you're lazy, but because your mental and emotional energy has already been spent. You've been focused, polite, responsive, restrained, and productive for hours on end. So you open a delivery app. What should be a modest dinner quietly inflates into an expensive order once fees and tips are added. You don't hesitate. Speed matters more than cost right now. All you want is for food to arrive without demanding anything more from you. When you get home, something still feels missing. You reach for a beer, a glass of wine, or a show you don't even particularly enjoy, not because it's meaningful, but because it helps your brain shut down. You sink into the couch and tell yourself a familiar sentence: I earned this. I worked hard all week. That thought feels justified, almost comforting. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You're not just spending money in that moment. You're paying a hidden cost for the way your job has drained you. The overpriced meal, the drink meant to take the edge off, the hours lost in numb distraction are not rewards. They are expenses. They exist because your work has taken so much of your energy that recovery now requires money, convenience, and escape. And this is only the surface. In the next part, we'll begin to uncover the biggest lie modern workers are taught to believe: that your salary on its own accurately reflects the value of your work and the quality of your life. From the moment we leave school and enter the workforce, we're taught a very simple equation. Your worth equals your salary. If someone earns $60,000 or $70,000 a year, we instinctively label that life as doing okay. If a job pays $30 an hour, it sounds respectable, stable, and sufficient. This belief is so deeply ingrained that most people never question it. They see the number on the offer letter and assume it represents the full story. But in every other area of life, this way of thinking would be considered dangerously naive. In business, no serious owner evaluates success by revenue alone. A company can bring in $1 million a year and still be failing if its expenses consume every dollar it earns. High revenue with low or negative margin is not success. It's slow collapse. Yet, when it comes to our own labor, we abandon this logic entirely. We look only at the gross number on our paycheck and ignore the costs required to generate it. We never ask what it truly takes to produce that income. We never subtract the expenses of being employable, presentable, available, and functional for 40+ hours every week. This is where the deception begins. Your salary is revenue, not profit, and revenue without costs is meaningless. The real mistake is that we don't treat our labor like an economic system. We don't see ourselves as the product being sold, but that is exactly what is happening. You are selling access to your time, your attention, your emotional regulation, your health, and your life energy. And the price you're being paid only makes sense if you ignore what it costs you to deliver those things. When people say, I make good money, but I don't know where it all goes, this is why. The money isn't disappearing, it's being consumed by invisible expenses that never show up on a pay stub. And because no one ever taught us to calculate those costs, we unknowingly participate in what is essentially personal accounting fraud against ourselves. In the next section, we'll stop speaking in abstractions and start doing something uncomfortable but necessary: a brutally honest audit of what working actually costs, starting with the money that never even reaches your hands. When people talk about work, they usually say, I sell my time, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, a clean, simple transaction. But this framing is incomplete, and that incompleteness is exactly what makes the system work. In reality, you're not selling hours on a clock. You are selling access to your life. Your job doesn't just take the moments when you are physically at your desk, it takes your energy before you arrive and your capacity after you leave. It claims your attention, your emotional restraint, your mental clarity, and often your physical health. The paycheck you receive is not compensation for time worked. It is compensation for allowing your life to be organized around the needs of your employer. Think about what you truly give up. You give up mornings that begin with alarms instead of rest. You give up mental space because part of your mind is always tracking deadlines, emails, and expectations. You give up emotional freedom because frustration, boredom, or exhaustion must be managed and hidden to remain professional. You give up presence because even when you are with family or friends, your thoughts often drift back to work. None of this appears on a contract. None of it shows up on a pay stub, but all of it is part of the transaction. This is why the language of hours worked is misleading. A job does not buy 8 isolated hours. It purchases dominance over large sections of your day and indirect control over your personal life. Your sleep schedule, your diet, your commuting patterns, your wardrobe, and even your social energy are shaped around the job. In economic terms, you're not selling labor, you are selling capacity. Capacity to focus, capacity to tolerate stress, capacity to remain functional even when depleted. And the more demanding the job, the more of this invisible capacity it consumes. Two people may both work 40 hours, but one may finish the day intact, while the other is emotionally hollowed out. The salary number does not capture this difference, yet the cost is very real. Once you see this, the idea of evaluating a job by its hourly wage alone becomes absurd. It's like pricing a house by square footage while ignoring the foundation, the utilities, and the structural damage hidden behind the walls. In the next section, we'll begin the uncomfortable part, a detailed financial audit of how much money disappears simply because you have a job, starting with the costs everyone expects, and then moving into the ones almost no one talks about. To understand what your job truly pays, we have to do something most people avoid. We have to audit it honestly. Not an optimistic estimate, not a budget based on best-case assumptions, a real, uncomfortable accounting of where your money goes simply because you're employed. Let's start with the obvious, the costs everyone expects, before moving into the ones that usually remain invisible. Imagine a worker earning what society calls a decent income, around $65,000 a year, roughly $30 to $32 an hour. On paper, this looks respectable, stable, enough to live on. But before that money ever reaches your account, a significant portion is removed. Federal taxes, state taxes, social security contributions, insurance deductions. By the time the paycheck lands, the hourly rate has already dropped sharply. What looked like $31 an hour quietly becomes something closer to the mid-20s. This part is familiar. People complain about taxes all the time. But the danger lies in what happens next, because most workers mentally stop the calculation here. They accept the post-tax number as their real income. It isn't. The next category of cost exists for one reason only: getting to work. Transportation is not optional. Whether you drive, take public transit, or rely on ride shares, money is being spent so that you can physically appear where your income is generated. Fuel, vehicle maintenance, tires, insurance, parking, train passes, bus cards, even time lost in traffic has a monetary equivalent, though it's rarely acknowledged. Many people own a car primarily because their job requires it. Without the job, the expense either shrinks dramatically or disappears altogether. Yet these expenses are rarely attributed to work. They are treated as normal life expenses, even though their root cause is employment. When you total them honestly over a year, commuting alone can consume thousands of dollars. That is not lifestyle spending. That is the price of access. Then there is the cost of looking acceptable. Most jobs do not allow you to show up as you are. They require a specific visual standard: clean, professional, appropriate, presentable. That standard comes with a price tag. Office clothing, shoes that can survive long days, dry cleaning, haircuts timed around meetings, subtle grooming expenses that add up over time. These are not expressions of personal style, they are functional requirements. If the job did not exist, many of these purchases would be unnecessary or drastically reduced. Yet, because they are spread out and normalized, they rarely feel like work expenses. They should. This is where the numbers start to grow quickly. Because work consumes so much time and energy, you begin paying for convenience. You buy lunch instead of cooking, you grab coffee instead of brewing it, you order delivery because you're too exhausted to plan or food. You hire help not because you want luxury, but because you lack capacity. These expenses are often justified as small or necessary, but they exist only because your job has already taken too much from you. You are spending money to compensate for energy that was consumed elsewhere. In effect, you are paying twice, once with your labor and again with your